Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm Dan Sisick, and I'm here in Las Vegas. And I will let my friends Katherine, Lori, and Jason jump out and introduce themselves, and then we'll get started with the reading in Chapter 9. I believe that's where we left off, and we're conscious communication.
Hey everybody, good morning. It's Jason here, down here in Florida. Happy to be here.
Good morning, Lori Emmons in Denver, and so happy to be here.
Good morning, it's Katherine Clement, and let me grab my book. All right, can everybody hear me okay? Yep,
Yeah.
okay. Conscious communication. As the heart of surrender is completed, you continue with your journey by discovering the skill of conscious communication. It is the next step in mastering relationships that allows you to focus on the gifts you are delivering to others instead of waiting for others to provide the attention, support, and care they may unknowingly withhold from themselves. The reason you appear to live in a world among many others is because the recurring benchmark in spiritual evolution is noticing how well you communicate. No matter how anyone chooses to express themselves with you, your response reflects how open your heart tends to be. As the wise, parent-like mind and the innocent, childlike heart are reunited, love emerges to the forefront of your daily encounters to speak on your behalf. While you will still be the one responding, it may feel as if your words are emanating from a deeper, richer, and more inspired state of being. A true enlightened master in a modern day era knows how to communicate the love of their true self by translating it into a language that anyone can interpret. As you become aware of the skills and capabilities of a masterful conscious communicator, you are able to enhance your relationships, savor each encounter, and cherish any experience no matter the circumstances. The reason communication is such an essential skill to master is because it is where most misunderstandings can occur. When there is an inability to consciously communicate, you may feel misunderstood by those around you, which can cause your heart to feel less inclined to open up at full capacity. I'm going to go ahead, mastering the skill of listening. Conscious communication begins with mastering the skill of listening. When listening, you give others a chance to be on the receiving end of your loving attention, which allows their subconscious mind to match your vibration. While there are many evolving spiritual masters who yearn to wake up so deeply that they'll be able to levitate, walk through walls, or shapeshift, one of the most impressive demonstrations of awakened consciousness is the ability to listen. An awakened being knows listening to be the most direct way to remind someone of their highest value. Whether lost in the beauty of a lover or exchanging smiles with a neighbor, the gift of your attention remains an extraordinary treasure you are capable of offering just by observing the innocence around you. Have you ever acknowledged the power contained in your loving gaze? Have you ever seen how quickly and effortlessly everything falls into place when you accept that everything is here to be blessed by the grace of your attention? Once you realize this, the activity of witnessing the transformation of all occurs by allowing others to be heard. When you're listening, you're no longer focused on what you think about things or how they've been labeled, but on honoring the unique way such divine works of art have come to appear. From this depth of awareness, you free yourself from needing to constantly prepare or rehearse your responses to what others are saying, since a greater willingness to listen to them is one of the most loving ways to engage. This means you don't need to know the answers to anyone's questions, including your own, since the best answer is taking a greater interest in the questioner. How profoundly would your life change if you no longer had to answer your own concerns or solve anyone's problems? What if you simply listened and gave loving attention to whatever comes your way? An overstimulated nervous system doesn't allow you to listen without an agenda, since it causes you to feel as if you are someone who is unsupported, overlooked, and misunderstood on a regular basis. This is often why human beings wrestle for control in conversations or find the time to debate one another. If consumed in ego, it's easy to feel as if no one is listening to you, no matter how much attention has been given. Whenever you are in constant need of being heard, there is no ability to hear others or realize that you are the only one who can give yourself the attention your heart desires. When anyone fails to give themselves the attention they seek, a feeling of being unsupported or misunderstood permeates their interactions. As that occurs, they can be motivated to recruit others to provide the attention they deny themselves. When two people come together in an attempt to get each other to offer a depth of approval that only comes from within, neither is listening to the other. This is how conflict is created. In conflict, the end result is propelling the overstimulated nervous system into greater momentum. On the other hand, when two beings view conversations as a way of gifting their own heart with undivided attention by practicing to be a better listener to others, excuse me, there is no need for conflict to erupt. Give me just 1 second. This is because both are aware of the fact that they are the only ones who are in need of hearing whatever they have to say. When human interactions become a way of practicing self-acceptance by treating others with more patience, kindness, and respect, a constant need to be heard shifts into listening as an act of love. It is important to remember that your heart doesn't know the difference between you listening to others and others listening to you. The more openly you listen, the more accepted your heart tends to feel. As long as you develop the skill of listening, your heart feels safe to be open, even if others lash out in defense. That's probably pretty good to chew on.
It is. I'm going to personally say I think listening as an act of self-love might help add on to this, but I'm not sure. What do you think?
It's short. I can.
I think it'll help.
Listening as an act. Okay. Listening as an act of self-love. When listening becomes an act of self-love, a stunning truth is discovered. In ego, it is common to believe that someone else's words or behavior is the reason you feel unaccepted, judged, or rejected. In reality, other people cannot affect you. It only seems as if they limit your experience when you refuse to hear a point of view that doesn't match your own. The more you allow yourself to listen, whether you agree with anyone's ideas or not, the less likely you feel rejected in the presence of another. The catalyst of rejection is life's way of reminding you how other people are not always created to treat you better than you treat yourself. Instead, they help you practice treating yourself better by how lovingly you interact with them. This doesn't mean you should pretend to enjoy the company of those who treat you poorly. Instead, it invites you to cultivate greater compassion for yourself by allowing others to speak their mind. As the skill of listening is mastered, every heart is healed by the brightness of your being. When others have the right to speak, you inspire everyone around you to shine their light.
Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate that you also read that last little section because I think it plays into all of what we just read Anybody have any thoughts or anything they would like to bring out on any of these sections?
I would so like it to that if I, everybody's heard, if I'd only known then what I know now, how much life would have been different for me and my children, my family. And it's amazing how things are all coming together to help me learn this stuff. That dumb ego,
I will have to say what came out for me and what jumped out for me, kind of along with what Lori was saying, is that some of this now makes sense as to a lot of what I grew up with and dealt with in my family, aside from what I lived through. But even just in general, in my family, it seems like we have to talk over each other in order to get heard or get a chance to be able to say what we're feeling or how we're, just, and sometimes we have to really literally talk over the other person in my family. And some people tend to just keep going, even though you're trying to get your point in edgewise a little bit. And so I think that's something that I just feel everybody does. So I just tend to be that way kind of with everybody, and carried over into one friendship where I have a friend who's that same way, but always complains that every time I say something or every time I'm trying to get my feelings out or get them to understand my point of view, where I'm coming from, they think I'm just complaining, or they think I'm just, and it really gets to be really tiring, and it gets to be hard, and it has really put a dampener and distress on that friendship, to where, yes, I like hanging out with this person, at times, but during that time period, I also know that somehow there's going to be friction, and I'm going to feel like I'm having to try and overtake just to even get that person to even validate or hear or listen to me, and not have it twisted that I'm being picked on, or that I'm hurt or this, because I'm not. I'm just trying to get them to look and understand my point of view. So I think in hearing this and seeing this, that maybe tone down, even though I'm still wanting to be heard and my point of view to get across, but maybe if I just let them run out of things to say, and then maybe I can approach it differently and show them love and respect in that aspect. And then maybe they'll turn around and can give me that back. And so that's something that I think that's why I think I wanted to have you read the listing as an act of self-love, because maybe that's something, I think that's something I need to do more for myself. So that way, if I'm willing to go ahead and listen first and foremost and give them that, then hopefully I'll get that in return, and it'll get better as with other people too, even when I'm dealing with other people and reacting, and it'll become more of a habit just in general, and therefore bring me more peace, I guess, maybe in some way. Sorry I went on so long, but I was working through the thoughts.
I'm really glad that he brings listening up, because I think listening is just one of the most important skills that anyone can have, because so many people in the world feel unheard right now. And so many people, it's amazing. We are inundated with technology, and yet there are many, 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 many people in the world that don't feel like they have someone to talk to, that they can share things with. Um, People who are kind of like afraid to go to see a counselor or somebody because they don't believe in the whole mental health system, or they don't want to get wrapped up in that. They just want somebody to talk to. Matter of fact, on my website, that's one of the things that I offer is listening sessions. I don't have to say anything to anybody, or I can give feedback if they want it. But just to be, well, I am a minister, so just to be that ear, to listen to people, I think is huge. And listen, I find that most people listen for about the first few seconds of what you say, and then they start formulating their thoughts. That's one of the reasons why, even though it would help our numbers and stuff, I refuse to get on Facebook or YouTube Live and distract my attention from you guys when we're in these conversations. To me, we're sitting across the kitchen table from one another having a conversation. So I'm not going to distract my attention and be off on Facebook or someone else, because I really want to hear how these readings are affecting you and what they bring up. And in the process of listening, it also opens you up energetically, and you really start to feel, if you're not distracted in your mind with other thoughts, you really start to connect more energetically and can really feel better. So I love that he brought this up in this chapter.
Yeah, I think I agree with you wholeheartedly on a lot of things. We are so distracted, and I think in a lot of ways, society has purposely made us or helped add. I'm not going to say necessarily purposely, but helped add in subtle purposely. What I can't think of the word I'm trying to use, to keep us distracted from really listening to what is going on out there and to really actively listening to each other, because I think that would be one of the things that would really help society as a whole if we could learn the art of listening and shutting up, but listening to each other and giving people that true opportunity to say what they need to say without, like you're saying, sitting there trying to formulate a thought of how you're going to respond, or even letting your own thoughts wander into, okay, well, what do I have to do later after I'm done with this? I've got to go and do this. I got to go and do that. So we're even still half listening and not really listening with that intent and purposefulness and attention, where we're actively sitting, listening, looking at the person, engaging. Because I think if you, like you said, if you really sit and listen and purposely, intently look and pay attention and engage, yeah, I think you do get that feeling. It does open you up. You do feel that energy, and you do feel some of what they're saying. And so therefore, then you can get a sense, and then it might answer some questions that you have, even without even having to say anything or ask anything too, I think. And I think that's just something that with all our gadgets, with all our, technology and, revolutions of everything becoming so advanced, we've lost the art of true connection with one another. And we try to, we really do. We really try to get it through this artificially, and that's not the same as, even this doesn't fully do it, but we can still get it. Like you said, if, like you said, you don't get on anything else. When you're here, you're purposely here, intently paying attention and listening. And even through here, I think, we've all felt it at times when we've talked, even through here, emotions and feelings and stuff when, one of us is hurting or one of us is going through something rough or something, and we are actively engaged listening and we feel it. And then somehow it helps us in some ways, because we might be going through something and we can like let some of that out or say, oh, I feel that. I agree with that. I get it. And then offer, that response, that true, real response in return. So I think, you made some great points there.
Yeah, we've definitely, our focus has definitely suffered, even I think before the internet. We were already being distracted by all the different things in society that we were supposed to be, that society wanted us to focus on. I realized this probably about a decade ago, maybe longer than that, that it seems like, the holidays, for instance, we have one holiday after the other every year. It's like they filled up the entire year, at least in America, they filled up the entire year, where as soon as one thing is over, you're on to the next thing and now focused to the next thing. And then, every weekend you're focused on going to church or your religion or whatever, your weekend holiday, so we really have sort of created this system where throughout the year we're consistently being refocused on the very next thing, which can be, in a good way, gives us something to look forward to, but it also keeps us from really growing within our own selves. I hear about other people. I hear about people that are so focused on their craft and what they're doing that they just block everything out for a period of time, and that's how they get all their work done and make such great leaps and growth in their own lives by blocking everything else out. Blocking out all the sports venues and all the holidays and all the special things that we're supposed to be doing or focusing on, that society or TV or everything wants us to focus on. So yeah, I totally agree. We've definitely our focus has suffered, and getting back to where the book is talking about, I'll try to make this really quick. The listening aspect of it as being not just giving the gift to someone else of listening to them, but also providing that gift to ourselves. That is really mind-opening to me. I don't know if anyone wants to speak a little bit further on that. There's a lot that we could talk about with this stuff, so I'll just shut up for a minute and let you have someone else speak. I'll listen.
Well, I was going to say, when I was thinking about, and I'm trying to think back to pictures or stories or things I've heard or representations I've heard of, like back in, like maybe, I'm going to say maybe more than 100 years ago, maybe 150 years ago, maybe even farther back when early America and stuff, and like this is the example I'm thinking of. Like women would go and do the quilting or the knitting or the, kind of where they'd sit and, quilt or knit blankets and stuff, for people in the family or for the community or something like that, and where they would sit and talk. Yes, they were actively working and doing something good for like the community or the family or something, but they were engaged in talking listening and probably intently listening as they were doing that and things like that. And where do we do things like that nowadays? We really don't. We don't really sit and just, you know, tone down all the distractions. Like you said, you know, there are some people that are able to like totally tune out things and turn things off and, you know, keep things, you know, to a minimum. Like me, I know I work best when I just close myself off, put on a little bit music or my headset and, you know, kind of go to town, but that's not interacting with anybody else. But in talking and interacting with other people, because of some of the books we've done, I try to stop myself from just thinking ahead or reacting, or I don't always do it. In the case of the one friend, it rarely happens, but I do try at times to sit there and really attentively look at the person and engage and actively listen. And I have noticed some differences, and I know I need to do it more because I get more out of it when I do that, because then I feel I'm more engaged and more, you know, a part of it. And I'm not just reacting, I'm actively listening. And it's odd, it just gives me a sense of the best way I can say it is maybe full engagement, whether it, I guess it hits a lot more the senses, so to speak, I guess, and, and allows the whole me to be a part of it rather than just bits and pieces, if that makes sense.
It does make sense to me. And I'm being brought to think of the way that we speak and communicate. Like you said, we don't have those like sewing circles or those card games, or, you know, where people get around and we're doing one thing, but we're actually really communing and talking. But even in our everyday language, in our conversations, we tend to we tend to speak in a cadence and with sometimes without respect for the other person that we're speaking to also, so that we don't give them a chance to chime in. But then there's also the option or the aspect that some people can be, when they're actively listening, they're trying to anticipate what we're saying. And so we can start to say something to begin with, and before we have a few words out of our mouth, another person's already trying to like answer a question that we haven't even asked yet. But then at the same time, we can be the kind of, not, I want to say the cause of this sort of thing, since we can end our pauses with words like and or but or so, which causes us to then hold on to the mic longer, so to speak, and not give a person a chance to respond. Things like that we do and we're not really even conscious of, doesn't allow someone else to respond in a way that gives us that back and forth with the communication that so many people, I think, really do enjoy. I'll just leave it at that.
Excellent. I always love hearing what everyone has to say. And it is so difficult not to try and formulate your response. But I seem to hear everybody saying, if we could just go back to such and such time or such and such behavior or whatever, maybe we could solve all the problems. But I am learning that it's a huge time of transformation in our world right now. And I think we don't want to short circuit along the way that process. And of course, everybody's at a different stage of it. And it's so hard to not end with those, I think they're called prepositions. I don't know. I don't remember. I wasn't very good in grammar, but those qualifiers that, but wait, but I got to add something else. I don't know. And not always want the floor, even though you feel like you might not be heard. And so when you get a chance to speak, you just carry on rambling or whatever. So I'll leave it at that for now.
I agree with you in a way that I think we're talking, we're all talking about, going back to how, but I think that with the way things are and how we have advanced and how things have changed, it's not necessarily fully going back to that, but bringing elements of that back into and actively working towards that, even in society now, where we, because like you said, there's a big, I think Katherine and you, Lori, are both right in a way. There's a big cry out there of a lot of people that don't feel heard and are not sure how to go back about being heard. But sometimes being heard, you gotta hear first to listen, so that way then maybe the universe and you start receiving, and then can therefore in turn bring about your voice to be heard. I think some of this works hand in hand, that like he says, listening as an act of self-love. When listening becomes an act of self-love, a stunning truth is discovered. In ego, it is common to believe that someone else's words or behavior is the reason you feel unaccepted, judged, or rejected. In reality, other people cannot affect you. And it takes me back, and I hate to use this saying, but in a way, and I'm using it as a kind of converse or juxtaposition, but you go back to the sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never harm me. Well, yes, words can harm, but you have the ability to take that harm and change it and look at it for what it is, and then change that. So then that way you can hopefully take what you need out of it, but then turn around and radiate love back out to give that back out. So then that way, in turn, by listening and opening up, I think, in a way, I think the book's right, or he's right. We get what we need when we start to actively listen, but then that in turn, we can actively give back out to others for them, and start maybe modeling or showing the way to listen and how to be heard in a loving way without attacking or out trying to just get your point out and everything like that. I'm sorry, I've got to cut short. I need to let a dog outside, so give me a second. Go ahead, somebody else, if you have any thoughts.
Would anyone else like to hop out or speak? I mean, I'll just say that where he says in on page 147 in the middle, towards the end of the listening as an act of self-love, it's that last paragraph. he's, well, just above that, I'll start there. But the catalyst of rejection is life's way of reminding you how other people are not always created to treat you better than you treat yourself. And so instead, they help you practice treating yourself better by how lovingly you interact with them. And in reading that, I'm reminded that when we speak with someone or begin to communicate with someone, they don't always, or we can also be, well, we also may do this as well, where we don't set up the conversation, or we don't give them advance notice of what we're trying to do to speak about it, what we're speaking about, or what we're expecting back in the conversation. But sometimes you can tell that a person is just needs to vent, or sometimes you can tell that they're really going to ask you something that they need, some guidance on. But if we can be aware of that, what the conversation could be about, more so than trying to figure out exactly what they're going to say, or what they need to hear, what we think they might need to hear from us, that allows us to open up and listen. For me, I think that listening in that manner not only allows me to give them the space to say what they want to say, I still have to be comfortable in the idea that whatever enters my mind that I think might help them, that I can hold on to, and it will be there for me when they finish. However, allowing them that space to say what they need to say also allows me the space to better understand where they're coming from and what they might need, and maybe keeping myself from overextending or stepping out into it in a way that I might later on not feel comfortable about. I don't know if you ever come out of a conversation later on, go, why did I say it that way? I could have said it better this way. And then, but it's like what you said, I think you said, Katherine, earlier, about listening. Sometimes just being able to let someone vent and listen is sometimes all they really need. And it's both helpful to them, and I found it's helpful to me because I can almost feel myself growing and while I'm listening to some people, because I'm having to kind of keep my mouth shut and and focus on what they're saying, and because of just realizing that it's not always the first few words out of their mouth that is their main point. And then ending in where, like we said, ending in words like learning to end in words like or questions like what do you think about that?
I missed some of what you guys were talking about, but coming in on the tail end, I think we've also lost the ability to, and I hope Katherine gets a little bit of what I'm getting at, how to lead a conversation, so to speak. So that way, because I think in conversation, sometimes you can also set parameters too. Like you said, like she says she sometimes on her website, she allows for listening sessions where she probably doesn't really say much of anything and listens and takes it in. But sometimes, going back to what you were saying, Jason, sometimes in the venting process or talking and all that, um, the person will come to their conclusion that they need to come to on their own as they're talking it out, and then maybe might ask you, say, what do you think about that, to just get your view of opinion and maybe to help validate them. Now I get the dog. Now he finally wants to go out. Sorry.
Well, I like this one sentence, which is easily overlooked, but it was at the very beginning of the reading. Let me find it here. The reason you appear to live in a world among many others is because the recurring benchmark in spiritual evolution is noticing how well you communicate. So I think we have to keep in mind as we're trying to figure out, well, how does listening to someone benefit me? Well, we're all the same. We're just different aspects of each other. So that's why listening to someone else benefits you so much, because you're actually listening to yourself just in a different voice, and from a different aspect, from a different point of view, so to speak. But if you think about conversations that you've had in your life or interactions that you've had with people in your life, it's very rarely do you walk away from a conversation where you've been doing most of the speaking and you go, wow, I learned a lot. No, it's when you shut up and listen to somebody else that you learn, right? You don't really learn. I mean, you do learn from talking to yourself, and you can work things out by speaking. I'm not I'm not talking about it from that point of view, but I'm just saying generally, when you have one of those days where you're just on top of the world because suddenly everything clicked for you, it's usually because of something you've heard someone else say or something that you've observed in the universe, happen. It's not usually after you've just listened to yourself talk forever. So I think we need to keep in mind that we're so energetically connected, and we feel that we're all such problem solvers. We're very uncomfortable with discomfort. So when let me break it down to something really simple. So the way that I eat, I know this is way off base, but it'll make sense. Believe me, hang in there. The way that I eat is 6 hours a day I eat, and the other 18 hours I don't eat. I allow my body to rest and heal during those hours and repair itself. And that's kind of how a conversation needs to be. You you have your little piece where you can kind of add in and mirror back what somebody's saying or whatever to let them know they're heard. But if you jump in and you just want to fix the problem because they're uncomfortable. Now, because I only eat 6 hours a day, there are points in the day, like the first thing when I wake up in the morning, and there are certain times of the day when in the past I used to eat meals at that time that I am hungry. Sometimes I'm just like starving. But do I go eat? No. I sit with that uncomfortableness because I know how much that's helping my body heal. So the point is, there has to be a certain amount of uncomfortableness. Like a lot of people won't sit with hunger. They'll just go eat something. Sometimes we have to sit with these emotions and really feel them. Sometimes we can feel that when we're listening to someone else speak about their pain, and it reminds us. Sometimes it reminds us that, wow, maybe the thing that we were focused on wasn't quite so bad after all. Sometimes it reminds us that, we're all human and we're all hurt and we all have trials and tribulations to go through, and it makes us feel more connected to each other, and more, we don't feel like the oddball out or the odd man out all the time. So I think listening it is an act of self-love because it reinforces so many things for us. But really, I think when it comes down to, I think he's so right when he says the reason it appears that you're surrounded by so many different people, we're really just surrounded by ourselves in different disguises.
Ooh, that's good, Catherine. That's really good.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm sitting here and just kind of taking in some of what you were saying. That last little bit really kind of hit me because of what I said earlier about my family. Growing up in my family, it has always seemed like whenever we get together, we're always kind of talking over each other. We don't really, you know, give anybody else the chance to say anything. I hate to say that about my own family in some ways, but if I'm going to be honest, it's kind of true. And then now looking at my one friendship with the one friend and seeing that part, that's kind of made me think that, okay, there's a reflection of my family and how I tend to maybe sometimes be with people. And yes, I tend to kind of want to be the fix it person. I seem to always have an answer, which is not always the right answer. I will admit that. But with him, I think because I just always constantly feel like I have to fight him, that, but a few times when I have shut up with him and just kind of let him go on, it kind of dissipates and things just kind of, and the feeling changes too. So I'm going to have to really sit and think about that because I think that might be more of a reflection of my world from another sense of source reminding me of that. So thank you for that little tidbit.
I liked how you put it there, Catherine, or your reference to starving, because I think that's the closest emotion I can relate to when I feel like I've been doing all the listening, but I really do want to have something to say. It's like I'm starving to say something, like it's like my stomach kind of gets knotted up, like, am I ever gonna say something, ever get a chance to say something? But it's at that moment that especially depending on the event that I'm in, that I realize maybe I'm not the one that needs to be heard as much, and so my thoughts end up going towards the people I'm communicating with, and I guess it's like giving love or whatever, but it's really just like, I feel like I want to give person their time, especially with the things I've been going through lately. Everyone has so much to say, and yet we don't know quite how to say it. And so when the thought pops in our heads, we want so badly to get it out. And so I think when we are able to allow others the time to say what they need to say, sometimes that can be one of the greatest gifts we can give them, and ourselves, as we kind of grow in the process. Don't you think?
Absolutely wonderful analogy, Catherine. It is so difficult to sit with the discomfort, and everybody seems to be, maybe it's created through all this constant bombardment with information from here and there and everywhere that we don't know how to sit with the discomfort, because all of life has seemed to how can we make this easier for humanity? How can we create something, build something, design something that will make life easier? And now we have that capability, and everybody wants their own way. Everybody should do it my way. And that scares the heck out of me. No, what if my way is not correct? And what if it's more detrimental? I don't want to be in charge of that. I'm just so happy that I'm not the judge at the end of all this, or whatever, if there is such a thing. But I love that analogy, Katherine. Thanks.
I love what you were just saying, Lori, in the sense of, how, I agree with you. I don't think we do like to sit in that discomfort or in that, and kind of, because we don't like that feeling. We don't like the way it feels, but that, hate to say it, that's a part of life, also is going through the discomfort. And like, going along with what Katherine said earlier, sometimes listening, you can gain something, but out of listening for yourself, that helps, give you love and maybe what you need to hear. But at the same point, sitting in the discomfort sometimes will give you the inspiration to work towards maybe a solution that you may not have given yourself that chance before if you hadn't sat with that discomfort. And that could be, something that could help you or somebody else too in living through that. Because I know I don't like discomfort, but at the same point, discomfort has its place in time, and it can't be avoided sometimes. And we, but we want to rush through it and get away from it rather than understanding it for what it is and the process that it allows us to have, along like with listening to other people. I think that kind of goes hand in hand. And two, it brings me in, and I pick on this movie a lot, but I love this movie. But at the same point, I see the ramifications, I think, of seeing that this movie having been made and projected is the movie WALL-E, where you see the people, they're moving around on these little platform things that they sit or recline or lounge on. They got that screen attached to their face, so they're bombarded with everything constantly. They have their stuff supplied for them and everything, drinks and food and stuff. And then they're told, oh, well, change to this color of the suit that they're wearing, because they all wear these generic suits. And okay, today's suit color is blue, and then tomorrow's, you kind of get told you look the same. Everything is so but the thing that got me was just sitting there on that thing. You're not really doing anything, you're not active, and you have that screen attached to your face for that constant bombardment, and you don't get that time to really act or interact, and you're not interacting with other people. It's when they went through and had to go through the struggles of what they went through, and had to get up and do things and walk and do and this and fight and do stuff for each other and band together. That's when they realized the value of, community, I think, in a sense. And in that, I think that our world is fast approaching towards something like that. And that's scary. That's something I don't want to be in. And that's, that's why I'm appreciate books like these, even though sometimes I'm not sure about how I'll feel about them, but and excuse me, going through them a lot of times, I can appreciate and get things out of them that can help me apply them to my life and apply to learning to listen better, learning to give other people a chance to let their voice be said, and all these things, and learning what to say when I talk to myself to help build myself up. All these things. Um, the books that we've done over the years just add to and help build and help me grow. So in that sense, I think, in as anything, the books always help. A lot of times I don't always agree with all of them, but I can take parts and pieces, just like I can from my interactions with everybody. I can grow and take something from every interaction and use it and for my betterment in that sense. And learning to listen to others is a big one.
Yeah, and of course, if you go back to Abraham, Abraham tells us that when we're feeling discomfort, that's because we are not looking at it the way that our higher self would look at it. So also sitting with the discomfort gives us the opportunity to explore areas like that and figure out, well, just why am I uncomfortable? I mean, it's one thing to recognize you're uncomfortable, but then sometimes you have to figure out why you're uncomfortable. Most of the time, it's, you're judging someone, so you're not doing what your higher self would do because your higher self isn't judging anyone. Sometimes it's because you're, playing the victim. Well, your higher self doesn't play the victim. So, I can see where that statement could be true, and of course, I don't know, back in the 80s or something, it was a big movement. What would Jesus do? It's the same sort of thing, when you think about your higher self, what would, how is my higher self looking at that person or that situation? And is that the reason that I'm so uncomfortable with it? Because I'm not in alignment with that. Because it's really easy to get caught up in human emotion. This is one of the things that um, confirms to me when I'm speaking to a, whether you want to call it God or higher self or whatever you want to call it. I know when I'm getting answers from that higher perspective than when I'm getting them from myself, because like you guys know, I was really, the Uvalde situation hit me really, really hard. I was really struggling. In the midst of that struggling, I was also, utilizing these mindset techniques that we speak about every week. And so I was trying to get on that higher flying disc, as Abraham puts it. I was trying to figure out, why I'm so low. And one day I just got really pissed and was just yelling at God and like, why? Why does it have to be this way? Why does there have to be so much suffering? Why can't you come up with a better plan, that we don't have to suffer like this to get these lessons that we're supposed to learn? And in the most quiet, still, and calm whisper that you have ever heard, I heard, that is the cost of free will. And that was it. That's all they said. That is the cost of free will. So, do you want to be able to choose freely how you feel? Do you want to be able to do whatever you want to do? Or do you want to be Do you want to have a God that rules and judges you? And at some point, we chose to be free. And so when we look at some of these things that really hurt our hearts, we're recognizing that the pain of that and that that's not what our higher self would choose. But at the same time, I think that is the cost of free will. And so you can't let it, you do have to be able to feel it, but at the same time not let it consume you by bringing some there's a word that I can't think of at the moment, but bringing some balance. That would be an easier word to come up with, equanimity. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. And I don't even know where that came from, but God just dropped it in there for me. Bring some equanimity to the situation. We do have free will. We do get to choose what we think, what we say, and how we act. And our acts and our words can bring comfort to the world, or they can bring discomfort to the world. But either way, both are serving. And once we can accept that to a certain point, I'm not saying it makes it easier. I'm not saying I still don't cry over it or get upset over it, but it does bring me up from depths of despair. And when I apply that equanimity like that, I love you guys. I'll shut up now.
No, I appreciate that thought and those words because, yeah, there are times where you don't understand it. You do yell at God because I've had my own moments, as I talked about last week. I've had my moments and I have yelled at God, and I have no problems doing that because I think that's allowed. I don't blame or I don't curse or I don't, but I do yell at times, and with my frustrations why. So I get that. So with that, it's about working on towards a quarter after. We started a little late. So if anybody else has any thoughts or anything, I'll let you jump out really quick. If not, then I'll wrap it up for this week.
I loved what you were just saying there, Catherine. That was really eye-opening, mind-opening, and appreciate you so much. Thanks for another great reading. And I'll just put it out there also that hey, we do sometimes start a little bit late, but we are in the background talking amongst ourselves live. And if you're part of the group, you're welcome to join us. Hop on the Zoom, and we'd love to have you on, and you can join us and take part in the discussion, the pre-discussion as well. This has really been a great, not only a great reading, but a great topic. I think we could probably speak on this quite a bit longer, but I have, there's a lot for me to think about here, and just what we spoke on. Appreciate what you're saying about it, Lori, in regards to all of us wanting to kind of go back in time to when we were doing more of like active listening, and the appreciation for receiving this wisdom now, and the awesomeness of how it can affect those who are receiving it now, and help them in their lives as well. And thank you so much for your points as well, Dan. I appreciate you too. Hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. We'll see you next time.
Well, you guys know how I feel about you guys. I love you all, and you guys are, really important to me, and a great addition into my life, and just, lift me up when I need lifting up. So, with that, but once again, we're in the book, Whatever Arises, love that. I love Revolution That Begins With You by Matt Kahn. I did not say anything about it in the beginning because this week was a little different. And so, but we should be back live hopefully next week again. This will be recorded, and hopefully Samantha will get it up and on to our Facebook page at Facebook. You can find us at mindsetmastery.com. On our website, you can find us at Mindset Mastery Collective on Facebook and on YouTube. As always, you can find our YouTube videos there for everything we've done through all the time we've been around. And with that, I am going to say bye for now and see you all next week on the Saturday Morning Mastermind.